Russian Channel 1 military correspondent Anna Prokofyeva was killed in the Belgorod region. Russian blogger Vladimir Romanov reported this on his Telegram channel. According to him, the journalist died on March 26 while carrying out an editorial assignment. The blogger said that Prokofyeva worked in the village of Demidovka, Krasnoyaruzsk district. The circumstances of her death were not reported. It should be noted that on March 24, Izvestia correspondent Alexander Fedorchak, Zvezda cameraman and driver Andrey Panov and Alexander Sirkeli were killed in the Luhansk region. Izvestia wrote that Fedorchak had been working in the combat zone since 2022. Her last report on the situation in the Kupyansk direction was recorded the day before. He was a special correspondent of Zvezda TV channel in 2022 to 2023, and before that he worked as an editor at Krim 24 TV channel for 4 years. Izvestia said Fedorchak had entered the Luhansk region, most of which has been captured by invading Russian forces, after reporting from the Kupyansk area in the neighboring Kharkiv region, one of the areas where Russian forces have made advances against Ukraine's troops in recent months. Russia's state-controlled English-language RT outlet posted an image of Fedorchak on social media, saying only that the war correspondent's circumstances of death are not clear yet. The Zvezda channel, which is sponsored by Moscow's Ministry of Defense, later said that its correspondent, Nikita Golden, had also been seriously wounded in the attack, which it described as a strike on a civilian vehicle. Ukrainian officials have yet to comment on the Russian claims that the journalists were targeted.
In the border area of the Belgorod region of the Russian Federation, the Ukrainian army continues a local offensive. The Russians have big problems there. This is what Russian Telegram publics are writing about. Thus, the VCHK-OGPU Telegram channel reports on the entry of small groups of Ukrainian infantry into the Krasnoyaruzsk region. According to it, there were several attempts to pull apart concrete pyramids known as Dragon's Teeth using engineering vehicles to open the way for armored vehicles. There is contradictory information that due to the Ukrainian landing groups that have entered the rear of the Russian armed forces, a threat of encirclement is being created for Russian troops in the area of Grafovka and Demidovka. Up to 1,000 Russian troops are defending there, and their situation is assessed as grave, with dead and wounded, the VCHK-OGPU writes. The Podubny Telegram channel also reports that Ukraine is using small infantry groups in this area. They are rolling up on quad bikes and buggies. They are not using heavy armored vehicles yet, he writes. The Telegram channel notes of a veteran indirectly confirms active fighting in the border area of the Belgorod region. Residents of certain settlements in the Krasnoyarsk region were advised to leave the combat zone. Many followed these recommendations, but there are those who did not. And now this is a problem since the situation has worsened and they have to be evacuated by the military, volunteers, special services and the militia, who in turn are suffering losses because of this, writes Z Channel. As reported on March the 18th, the Russian Defense Ministry announced the thwarting of a Ukrainian provocation in the Belgorod region. In particular, they stated that Ukrainian troops allegedly tried to penetrate Russian defenses in the Krasnoyarsk region. The Ukrainian General Staff did not confirm the participation of the defense forces in the fighting in the Belgorod region, but announced the destruction of the Russian Army field headquarters in this area. Military observer Denis Popovich believes that something is indeed happening in the Belgorod region, but it is too early to talk about a large-scale Ukrainian offensive like in the Kursk region last summer. After the collapse of the USSR in 1991, Ukraine inherited a significant arsenal of R-73 air-to-air missiles. These missiles, weighing 100 kilograms, are equipped with infrared guidance and are used by Ukrainian MiG-29 and Su-27 fighters to hit targets using the heat signatures of jet engines at a distance of up to 30 kilometers, writes Forbes. Like many similar missiles, the R-73 can be launched not only from aircraft but also from ground platforms. Therefore, when the reserves of specially developed thermal surface-to-air missiles, such as the 9M33 for the OSA-SAM system, began to run out, Ukraine decided to adapt the R-73 for these purposes. Today, there are at least 3 different ground-based launchers for the R-73 in Ukraine. The Gravehawk cargo launcher, created by British specialists, a modified version of the OSA-SAM system, and another launcher probably also based on a truck. Britain began building 17 Gravehawks for Ukraine last year. An upgraded version of the OSA with a pod for the R-73 was also delivered in 2023. The new launcher was accepted into service by the 3rd Airborne Assault Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces this month. Despite the venerable age of the equipment and the limitations of its tactical and technical characteristics, we are finding opportunities for modernization and the introduction of the latest approaches, noted Maxim Zaichenko, a serviceman of the 3rd Airborne Assault Brigade. He is right. The R-73 is indeed not new, as it was adopted into service back in the 1980s. However, the possibility of modernization remains, especially for Ukraine. Back in the early 2000s, the Kiev Central Design Bureau Arsenal developed a new homing system for the R-73 during a period when the Ukrainian and Russian defense industries were actively cooperating in the production of ammunition. This system turned out to be more sensitive and less vulnerable to interference compared to previous models. It is not yet known whether Ukraine's Gravehawks, upgraded OSA and other platforms, are equipped with the advanced seeker. However, the technology exists at least in theory. Given the Ukrainian military's desire to strengthen its air defenses on the front line, it is logical to assume that they will try to use all possible means to improve their weapons. Earlier, the UK officially unveiled the Gravehawk anti-aircraft missile system, created specifically for Ukraine. The new Gravehawk air defense system, which Ukraine will receive from the UK, can launch cheap missiles to shoot down enemy drones. The analysts specified that there could be many options for what kind of missiles this system could launch, including Soviet R-73/R-74 missiles. These missiles are in huge quantities in warehouses in Ukraine and are already used in sea drones to shoot down Russian helicopters. So, Ukraine destroys Russian military bases, airfields, and oil depots with old Soviet missiles.